April 1st is a very, very important day for me. Of course, I'm talking about Overwatch's April Fool's event, and also my anniversary, but that is happening in a couple of hours, so today I'm going to run you through some of the changes that are in the totally normal watch, or whatever it's called. But we're not just going to be talking about the funny ones or the silly ones, whatever. I love when they do these silly game modes, and then they kind of put in a change that isn't like so silly, like it honestly is kind of reasonable. And especially with perks now, I think there's a lot more leeway for things that could actually be interesting, that they consider to be jokes. But I kind of want to look at a couple examples of things that I think are maybe realistic changes, or maybe like a nice perk idea later in the future. So we're not going to start with D.Va, who's extremely small and all of that stuff. That's not what we're looking for. I actually want to start here with Hazard. Now, 400% knockback increase on wall is silly. But I will say that some kind of maybe a perk or just base kit where he gets a little more knockback from the wall might actually encourage him to use the wall in different ways. Just because, like, you know, using wall right now, you kind of use it for like half sustain, but also like grabbing people out of fights. You know, there's a lot of ways to use wall, and like actually using it for the knockback, because right now the knockback itself is not very much, but using it for the knockback more than like any of the other utility provides could actually be a pretty interesting choice, in my opinion. You know, trying to disrupt somebody so far, or like, you know, could get a kill, obviously that's always fun, but literally just the disruption of like throwing somebody out into the open, even if it's like, you know, like Jagged Wall is not a great tool in the open space for trying to displace people or catch them out, but you know, if you increase the knockback distance, then you actually might be able to use Jagged Wall more aggressively in those situations and catch somebody out in the open, which could be pretty interesting. So I kind of wanted to talk about that one. Moving forward, you know, a couple of silly ones here. I wanted to talk next about Ramattra, because Ramattra is really cool. I like this idea because this reminds me of the character Horizon in Apex. She's got like some sort of, I think it might be her ult. To be honest, I haven't played it in a while. But it like lifts people up into the air, that you can use either like for yourself or aggressively. Right now, I don't think you should be able to use it for yourself, but like the way that this works is that it pulls enemies upwards. Like it puts them into the air, which can lead to better shots. It's almost like weaker Wrecking Ball Pile Driver. Is this not like a fun perk idea, maybe, instead of having you know, one of the ones that either is too good or maybe just not as interesting, like the one where you stand inside your grenade and get health? What if you sent people upwards with Ravenous Vortex instead? I honestly think that'd be really fun, especially since it slows them. That's actually like really lethal in some regards if you're able to hit it. That could be really cool, in my opinion. You have like some cool synergies, some combos that you could use. I don't know, I think that would actually be a pretty interesting one there. Now, again, in terms of like perk ideas, Kinetic Grasp instead deflecting projectiles instead of absorbing them. That's a pretty silly one. Sigma's got a really good perk set that I really like, so I'm not exactly suggesting this one actually happen. Also, he shouldn't get free flight during Kinetic Grasp, but that also could be like a fun, silly one that Sigma could actually make a fun play. How good it would be? Probably not very good. I think it should still give him the, what's it called? The overhealth if he eats it. But just, you know, just something silly, you know, get the juices flowing. The Wrecking Ball one is so silly. The next one that I wanted to talk about was something in here that I'm trying to find. Oh, okay, here we go. Hanzo's wall climb one. Ignore the rest, ignore all this other stuff with Orisa climbing on top of her, whatever. Hanzo, while wall climbing, press reload to attach yourself to the wall. Now this is cool. I assume, I haven't played this yet, but I assume this means that you can just sit there and shoot, which I think is kind of interesting for a sniper character. Is it broken? I don't know. You could kind of put yourself anywhere, but a lot of people have kind of suggested a sniper with maybe like a perch type ability. This would give Hanzo a way to like have that idea of like, you know how he could charge the bow, climb up a wall, pop up out of nowhere, and like randomly catch somebody? This could give him that idea with, I think, a lot more counterplay and a lot more of like actually committing to a spot and putting yourself out in the open. I think it's a pretty interesting idea. Maybe not on Hanzo, maybe not on this character, but I think that's a mechanic that I think could be interesting as a perk. Or honestly, this could be like a base kit idea if we're really being for real about it. The Junkrat Riptire one, where he teleports to where it explodes, it's really funny, and like it wouldn't work, but just the idea of like Junkrat not necessarily always having to throw himself out of the fight, like completely take himself out of the fight when using Riptire, he could actually just kind of like rip it and ship it and like get right back into action. Because that's like a really big downside of Riptire, is that if you don't hit anything, if you don't like win the fight off of it, or like before it even starts, then you're out of the fight, so you don't really have as much value in it. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense, Junkrat teleporting everywhere, but I think it actually, like gameplay wise, has a couple of interesting implications. Moira being in damage is pretty funny. Pharah dealing direct hits to increased damage to direct hit airborne enemies is really cool in theory to me because of like how her kit works. Now, it's not like perfectly set up for this, but like concussion, like if you hit a direct hit after you've concussed somebody, so you force them into the air and then you do direct damage, but that's like a really hard shot to hit. I think that's a really interesting idea. This also lets Pharah have a much better like dual like ratio between like echoes or somebody who would like basically other flyers who do really well into her. I guess like Diva and Echo are like the two that I can think of. Freya is probably going to join that category. A Sojourn jumping up for a shot, not that she has to, but that could be part of the thing. She has a much better like matchup into those characters, which, you know, could make or break. Like that could be the difference. So I actually really like this. I think this is a cool idea. If concussion could potentially send a little more vertically, this would work really well with that. I think there'd be a lot of interesting synergy there. Not exactly how it works, so I'm not saying like this should happen, but I like the idea in theory. I think it's actually pretty cool. Soldier not being able to see ally enemy health bars was really funny, just for whatever reason. The hacking enemies grants a stacking buff of movement speed and magazine size. Setting up character setup is really difficult, you know, for like a game like Overwatch, because you could like super snowball in the way that fights work. If there were a way to like have it losing stacks over time, like a charge type of mechanic, that could actually make Sombra like an interesting, I don't know, it could be like a nice, like an interesting perk to one of her hack perks that are a little underwhelming. This could be like a different version to keep it more fun, where you're actually more encouraged to hack as often as possible rather than always go for hack, damage, survive. You know, you kind of want to keep that up. I don't know, I'm just kind of not sure how that would be implemented in like Sombra's actual kit, where I think it would need to be a lot more balanced, but it's a cool idea in theory. Symmetra doing target maximum health is a bit of a slippery slope, but I think that is an interesting knob to tune. If you have like flat plus maximum health, then Symmetra, instead of just sitting there and like shooting tanks, might actually be incentivized. Well, actually this makes tanks like worse, right? Like it makes the matchup into tanks worse. But I don't know. And as I am saying it, maybe I don't vibe with this one as much. If it were a lot more flat damage and less scaling damage, that'd be like shoot squishies more rather than tanks, right? That could be interesting. But I don't know, maybe as I'm saying it, just ignore this one. I think that'd be much more of a problem than it's actually worth. Torb. Okay, listen. Okay. I think that Torb having the sticky turret is just so valuable because its range is so high and the damage is so high and whatever. And like you kind of always want to take that one. But the only thing with the sticky turret is that you can't heal it yourself, right? Now that doesn't matter most of the time with Torb turret, because you have like being near it and like playing around it and hammering it is just not valuable. It's It's not how you want to be playing Torb. But if you give him an incentive to play more so like with the value of the turret, you know, playing closer to the turret, maybe he doesn't always want to do that. He needs more angle control. Maybe he doesn't need the angle control here. He plays with the turret. He has some way to play, right? He's got like something that he can do. Then it actually like maybe makes sticky turret not as good because you can't do that as often with the sticky turret. Maybe you want to take the other turret perks so you can overheal it. And just in his general gameplay loop, this could be more interesting, more fun. I don't know. Stacking on your turret isn't necessarily the most engaging thing ever, but I like this idea. I actually do think that this is not a bad idea on paper. Maybe it needs some tweaking, but just like having more ways to interact, I think is kind of cool as well. I don't even understand what can fly while burrowed means for Venture. Somebody else is gonna have to take that one. Baptiste getting a crouch while airborne to stomp on enemies, so I assume it's like a ground pound basically. Is that the thing that Baptiste needs? Now I think that good exo boots usage is what determines like good BAP players from okay BAP players, is like knowing when to use them, knowing how high you're actually going to go, not putting yourself in danger. This would just maybe a lot of times take you out of danger and not be as fun, maybe make his jump safer. But more interesting movement options could be fun, especially with the perk where he like jumps backwards. So you could be like jumping up, back, down. I think it's a little silly, but it is something. I think it's not like the worst idea ever. I would say like that can be explored, but I'm not going to say it's going to work out immediately, just from what I'm saying. Orbital Ray also reversing gravity. I would not put that on Orbital Ray. I talked about it with the Ramatra Grenade. I just like the idea of the reverse gravity. I think it's cool. The rest of these, I don't think I have anything. Random projectiles is a very funny concept. But yeah, that's it. Basically, like, of course, there are some of these things that are like, oh, reduce damage, increase attack speed, whatever. Those could, in theory, like, what? Like, those could be real changes. I'm not saying that. But some of the more, like, interesting, juicy ones, have been a couple of, like, handful of April Fool's changes or, like, event mode game changes that have actually made their way into the game. I know like Brig refreshing her shield when she pops Rally was, I think, an April Fool's change or like a Mirror Watch change, and that became part of the game. So sometimes they do like have an idea and then they kind of like it at the end of the day. So with perks, I think there's a lot more room for silliness, for some goofiness. So that's why I think this is actually like an interesting idea, interesting thought experiment. That's all I've got today. I've got to go run and have dinner with my girlfriend. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a comment down below, but subscribe and like before you do. What do you guys think about these? What are your favorite ones? Which are the silliest ones? Are they all working? Are they broken? I haven't played this game mode yet, so I could not tell you. I do stream. I will not be streaming for a couple of weeks, but if you want to see me when I do, twitch.tv/Layton Hemingway. And down below, all my links. Join my Discord if you want to keep up to date with everything that I am doing. And that's it. Happy April Fool's Day. Please have a good day.